Chapter 35, verse 1. Vayomer Elokim Yaakov. So let's just recap. We just finished chapter 34. Jacob's brothers said to Jacob's son, said to Jacob, should our sister be treated like a harlot? This was not the first hostage in Jewish history. Dinah was not the first. The first hostage was Lot, who Abraham ran and saved. But this was the second hostage, and Jacob was reluctant to get involved, but the brothers went in and they massacred. And Jacob's response was, you're making me odious in the eyes of the nations of the world who've taken my daughter and kidnapped her. And now you made me odious in their eyes. Well, we'll see if Jacob's fears were valid or not by these verses that we'll read today. Chapter 35, verse 1. God says to Jacob, Kum alei Beit El, get up and go to Beit El. Remember where Beit El was? Beit El was the first place Jacob came when he was leaving the land. He went out from that place that he went to was Beit El. Veshav Sham, and dwell there. And make for yourself an altar to the God who will appear to you when you ran away from Esav, your brother. Meaning to say, God reminds him that when you ran away from Esav, you stopped in Beis El. And that's where God appeared to you. Now you need to make an altar. Rashi says, Lafisha acharta nidracha, you have to lay your vow. What was the vow that Jacob had made? He had made a vow that he says, if you help me, God, I'll give you 10%. Well, as a result of this, then Nashta, you were punished. Hold on 1 second. So he says, and this came to you from your daughter. So what's the reason why you were punished with your daughter? It's Jacob's fault because he didn't pay his vow right away. What was his vow? If you go back to Parashas Vayetze at the very beginning, it says at the beginning of the portion, he says, like chapter 28, verse 20, Jacob took a vow saying, if God will be with me and guard me on this path and gives me bread to eat, clothing to wear, and I return peacefully to my father's home, everything that God gives to me, I'll give a tenth. But Abraham delayed doing that. And he had also promised to worship in Beit El. So therefore, he's delayed. And that's why you were punished, Rashi says. Vayomer Yaakov el Beitov et kol asher imo. So Jacob says to his home, to his household, and to everybody who was with him, yes, Jerry.
But Laban doesn't pay Yaakov for his wages until Yaakov says, I want to go home with my wives. So in other words, he does not have cash to undertake a sacrifice until wages are given to him at the end of his servitude to Laban.
Even if that's correct, and I'm not stipulating that you're correct, it says that Jacob came to Shechem and he pitched his tent there. He's no longer with Lavan. And he was delayed going back to Beit El and building an altar like he had promised.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
This is on the way back. I see.
He's already in Canaan. Vayomer Yaakov el Beito. Jacob says to his household, but kol asher imo. Everybody's with him. Hasirat Elohei hanecha. Remove the foreign gods. Asher b'tochachem, that are amongst you. V'ta'aru, and purify yourself. V'achlifu simlatchem, and change your garments. Remove the alien gods, Rashi says. What are they doing with alien gods? Why does Jacob son of alien gods? So Rashi says they got them from the booty of Shechem. Sheyesh biyadchem min hashalal shel Shechem. So why did they keep them though? There was never a commandment to get rid of them. They weren't commanded against idolatry yet. V'itaru, cleanse yourselves, me'avodah zarah, from this idolatry. Change your clothes. Why? Shema yesh biyadchem ksut shel avodah zarah. Maybe there is in your possession a garment of idolatry. Vinakuma. Then we will arise. V'na'aleh Beitel. We'll go up to Beitel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen.
Ve'asah sham nizbeach la'el. And I'll make there an altar to the God who answered me biyom tzarati, on the day of my distress. Vayihi imadi b'derech asher halachti, and he was with me on the path that I walked. Yeah, Jerry, you had a question?
Yeah, well, let's look at the series of events. Yaakov has now arrived in the land of Canaan. But the Rashi says Yaakov was stricken with the rape of his daughter while they were in back in Haran. So in other words,
The assault on his daughter happened in Shechem, which was in Canaan.
Really? I mean, Laban, I thought Laban was way back, living way back where Abraham made his first stop.
But Lavan is not the one who assaulted his daughter. That was Shem and the son of Hamor who assaulted Jacob's daughter.
Yes, right. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Of course, it's my pleasure. So then it says, "Vayinu al Yaakov et kol Elohei hanechar asher biyadam." They gave to Jacob all of their foreign gods that were in their hands, v'tanizamim asher bazneim, and their earrings. Vayitmono tam Yaakov tachat ha'elah asher Shem, and they buried them under the elah. Rashi says, "Min ilan srak." It's a tree that doesn't bear fruit next to Shem. Well, why did they bury them? Why didn't they destroy them?
Well, there were the gods of people that came with Jacob. Jacob says you can't worship them anymore. It's a little rude to toss them on the trash pile. Buried, they're gone. I mean, it seems
Burying them is like a sign of respect. That's what we do with our
But
Torah scroll.
not necessarily respect for the gods, but for the people who turned over their gods.
Yeah, those were his household members.
But they are.
Yeah. Vayisu, and Jacob traveled. And Jacob traveled with his people. Vayi chitat Elokim al ha'arim asher svivoteim, and the fear of God was on the cities that were around them. They didn't pursue after the children of Jacob. Yes, Jerry.
After the second word, Vayehi, there is a vertical line. Does that vertical line appear in the Torah scroll or not?
No. It does not appear in the Torah scroll.
So,
But
what is the purpose of that vertical line after the word Vayehi?
a very good question. It's called a psik. It's to pause. It says, you would read it as Vayehi, pause. Chitat Elokim. The fear of the God was on the cities that were around them, and they did not pursue. And it's like a dramatic pause. A dramatic pause.
Well, logically, it should appear after the first word, Vayisau, instead of after the word Vayehi. But I won't argue that.
I guess they were like saying, and behold. And then they said the fear of God was on the cities. It's almost like a musical note. It's like a musical note, but it was not recorded down until it's part of the trop, part of the cantillations.
Okay.
Now this verse is basically a rebuke to Jacob, because Jacob said to his children, "You made me odious in the eyes of the nations. They're all going to attack me. I'm a few in number. They're going to gather around me and destroy me." And I'll be wiped out. But it shows that Yaakov's fear was totally misplaced, because it says that they were afraid of Jacob because of what his children did. Or it just says that the fear of God was on them and they didn't pursue after Jacob. So Jacob was totally wrong. He was afraid. He was saying, what are the nations of the world going to do to me? They did nothing.
Because of the two sons who killed the the residents of Shechem.
Well, he said after Shimon and Levi killed the residents of Shechem, Jacob said, look what you've done. The other nations are going to attack me. But instead the verse says nobody attacked. They were afraid.
Right.
All the valuable stuff, buried it, so that they weren't so attractive to the local villages.
You're reading very speculatively. You're saying that,
Well, you have to explain why they buried that stuff.
well, because it was an foreign god, and Jacob worships only Hashem.
Could have burned it. I mean, I think they were trying.
No, the reason why he got rid of them was because God says to him,
Did tell them to bury it.
yeah, he didn't tell them to bury it, but well, you're saying now but why were they afraid? Because he got rid of it. It says that they were afraid.
Well, I'm still afraid, but I mean, the women took the ear things.
They buried it.
And then we buried along with the idols. So that's a sign of wealth. So if you get rid of the wealth, they're less attractive to their possible enemies.
Yeah, but here it says that they were afraid of. They didn't attack because they didn't have money. They didn't attack because they were afraid.
Two sons killed all the people of Shechem. I think I'd be afraid of them too.
Right, so that's the implication that they were mighty. It just goes to show sometimes we think we're going to be attacked by the nations of the world, but if we show strength, we're actually much stronger.
It's probably a conversation they're having in Israel right now.
I think that there's going to be a lot of fiery sermons, fiery hot takes on this portion, especially with Dinah being kidnapped. Also, the beginning of the portion with Jacob meeting Esav, how you prepare for battle. So what happens next? So what?
Nothing.
Okay, so now the verse states, verse 6, Vayavo Yaakov Luza, and Jacob came to Luz, Asher be'eretz Canaan. He Beit El came to Luz, which is another name for Beit El. He with all the people that were with him. Even so he built this altar. Makom El Beit El. He calls this place the God of Beit El. Because there God revealed himself when he ran away from his brother. Rashi says El Beit El. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Beit El. God is in Beit El. God revealed himself in Beit El. God revealed himself. Okay, next. The next verse is also very unusual. Very, very strange story here. Verse 8. Vatamas Devora Menekes Rivka. Devora, the nanny of Rivka died. She was buried in Beit El, Tachat Alon, underneath an oak tree. Well, Alon is an oak tree. Vayikra Shemo Alon Bachut, and they called it Alon Bachut. Just before we look at Rashi, this is such a strange verse. We've never mentioned Devorah at all. If we never mentioned her, we don't even know who she is. All of a sudden, we're talking about Devorah, and she's the nanny of Rebecca. Why do we care all of us? I know, yes, it's very nice. It's very nice when people appreciate their nannies. I'm not mocking that at all, God forbid. But this is the only nanny mentioned in the Bible. Highly unusual verse. It's like one of these verses that shouts out for Midrash. Hello, Reb David. We're chapter 35, verse 8. So let's see what Rashi says about this. Ma'inyan Devorah bebeit Yaakov. What's Deborah doing? Hello, Bill. What's Devorah doing in the house of Jacob? I mean, that's another question. Jacob ran away from Rebecca. We haven't even mentioned Rebecca at all for a long time. All of a sudden, what's Devorah doing in the house of Jacob? Elo Lefisha Amra Rivka Yaakov. Rebecca had said to Jacob, Vishalachti Olakachticha Misham. Rebecca had said to Jacob, I will send and bring you from there. Shalcha Devera Etzlo with Padan Aram, Atzeit Misham. So she sent Deborah to him, to Padan Aram, to leave there. Umeisa Baderach. She died on the way back. So the theory is that Rebecca had called for. Theory is that Rebecca had called for Jacob, and she sent her maidservant Devorah. I understand that midrash, but it strikes me that we need something more there. Does Rabbi Steinsaltz say anything?
Not really.
No, he says a lot
What does he say?
on the bottom.
What's his theory?
There's a lot of different theories. One is that it's about the death of Rivka herself, and Bereshis Rabbah talks about
That's
that.
the next Rashi. We didn't get to that.
Oh, well, then he said that Devorah may have been Yaakov's maidservant, like nanny as a boy, and then took care of his children following marriage of Laban's daughters. And this was Rivka's nurse who was sent by the family to accompany her. So they're saying Devorah accompanied Rivka to Canaan and stayed there, and now had come to greet Jacob after hearing that it was accompanying the parents home.
So that's another theory, that
Yeah.
she was coming out to greet him,
Correct.
like a surrogate mother.
This isn't the same Devorah.
No, I mean, no,
It's just another Devorah. It's not. It just had.
Yeah, the Devorah from the Book of Judges is going to be after the time of Joshua in the Book of Judges. And here we're saying something else. But let's look at the Rashi, and then we'll try to dissect these theories. It says, so he buried her at the foot of Beit El. Ha'ir Yoshevet Bahar. The city dwelt on the mountain. V'nikbara b'raglei ha'ar, and she was buried at the foot of the mountain. Tachat Alon, why do we care where she's buried? At the bottom of the plain, b'shipui mishra. Shayam mishor milama, there was a plain above. B'shipua ahar, there was a plain above along the inclines of the mountain. V'akvura l'mata, burial was below it. And they used to call the plain of Beit El Alon. The Agadah, so Rashi gives a literal explanation, but the Agadah is Nitpaser Sham Be'evel Sheni Shu Gadlo Al Imo Shameta. So the Rashi says there's another theory that Jacob was told there that his mother had died. Va'alon b'Rashi Vani acher, and alon in Greek means another. So Rashi is giving another theory that this is a Greek word, and he's calling it another crying. Vayiro, so another cause of mourning. And because the Torah concealed the day of her death, why? So why is the Torah not telling us when Rebecca died? Because we don't want people to curse. The womb from which Esav emerged. So therefore, Afa Katuvo Pirsama. So they hid the moment when Rebecca died because she was the mother of Esav. So that's what Rashi's saying. This is a veiled way of telling us that Rebecca died.
Her life was that stained for having Esav as a son that they were concerned that
people were going
to have like a petition at her funeral.
Yeah.
It's not very popular.
Even though she also gave birth to Jacob. The mother can never win.
I would have said that it's just because they didn't want to criticize Jacob for not being at her funeral. That's what we had with Terach when Abraham made Aliyah. Right?
Well, that's more positive.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not about Rebecca giving birth to Esav. It's about Jacob.
Okay, that's your midrash. Very nice. I like it. Rashi's is different, but that's okay. But the whole story is you feel sometimes in Torah you feel like you're definitely missing the bigger picture, and I feel like all of a sudden Devorah, we had no mention of her. We had no mention of her, and all of a sudden now she's playing this prominent role that we know her burial place. Yeah, Jerry.
Why do we blame the mother of Esau? We could also blame the father of Esau because it takes two to make a son.
Yeah, you know what? You have a very good point because we're told when Yitzchak died. So you know what? You have a good point. I think we're told when Yitzchak died. I think so. You have a good point. Why does the mother always get the blame? The mother gets the blame.
Yeah. Secondly, just because a mother gives birth to a child, the reputation of the son or of the child is based upon the lifelong activities and interests of the son. Not that's his or her choice in living.
Right.
Nothing to do with the mother.
You're not saying anything that's wrong. It's just that's the theory. I don't know, Jerry. I told you this passage is opaque to me. This passage is opaque to me. It's opaque to me. All right. So we should we have 2 more minutes. Verse 9. Vayira Elokim el Yaakov od b'va'o miPadan Aram, and God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram, Vayivarech oto, and he blessed him. What do you mean od? Again, Pam shenit b'makom hazeh, a second time in this place. Echad b'lachto, echad b'shuvo. Once when he was leaving, once when he was returning, and he blessed him. Rashi says Birkat Avelim, he gave him a blessing of mourners. Well, according to this approach, why is he mourning?
His mother's death.
Right, so you'd have to, it's like you're combining, but his mother had died a while ago. But then you have to accept that reading of Rashi that there was 2 deaths there, and they were obscuring the death of Rebecca. Yeah, it could be that too. Vayomer lo Elokim Shemcha Yaakov Lo Yikara Shemcha Od Yaakov Kim Yisrael Yesh Shemecha Vayikra Shmo Yisrael. And so, God, you had a question, Harold? No. And God said to him, "Your name, Jacob. Do not call your name again anymore, Jacob, but just call it Israel." And he called his name Israel. Rashi says, Lashon Adam Abba b'ma'arav va'akeva ve'ekvad. The name Jacob connotes stealth and treachery. But now your name should be Yisrael, which connotes Lashon Sarvin Agid. You're an officer and a nobleman. Wow. Vayomer lo Elokim ani kel shakai parei revei goy ukahal goyim yemi mekel mochim ochatzecha yitzeu. When God blesses him, we'll have to pick up this blessing tomorrow because a lot of Rashi's on it. But here Jacob's name is changed from Yaakov, which is almost a derogatory name, to Israel, which is a very positive name.
But doesn't Yaakov
Okay.
mean heel, H-E-E-L?
Yeah, but it also connotes, like Rashi says, it connotes stealth and treachery,
Also means crooked.
like akva, treachery.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll stop here.
Does it also mean crooked?
Yeah.
They go missing.
No, we're not. We have people in the building. No, they're here. Okay, we can pray now.